Hi, this is Dean from Worldwide Trekking. We are talking about Kilimanjaro, and today we're going to talk about medications and travel meds that are good to have for Tanzania, Africa. So there's two prescribed medications that you should have if you're climbing Kilimanjaro or going to Tanzania. First of all, if you're going to Tanzania, you should be taking a daily dose, looks like this, of anti-malaria pill, typically called Malarone. And Malarone is an anti-malaria pill that people can start to take maybe the day they're flying out for their trip, a couple days before they arrive in Tanzania. And you would take one Malarone pill each morning at breakfast to prevent malaria if you were to get stung by an infected mosquito while you were over there. Um, and then you continue to take this until, doctors usually say about 5 days after you've been home, one pill each day at breakfast time. The other recommendation that we have for people that's along with just travel meds is just a few over-the-counter medications. I don't usually travel anywhere outside of the United States without having just a small amount of some over-the-counter medications that can help me if I feel a little bit of traveler's sickness, say traveler's diarrhea, stomach upset stomach, things like that. So having a little bit of maybe Imodium AD, a little Pepto-Bismol, some cough drops can be convenient at high altitude, even some Visine. Dry, dusty, irritated eyes can be a problem up in the alpine desert on Kilimanjaro. But having just a small med kit, I pack a small little med kit about this big with all of the different stuff in there. I take it out of the boxes and condense it, and that way while I'm there, and this goes for a lot of places I travel in the world, if I'm there and I do have irritable stomach, I have some Pepto-Bismol. If I have a problem in the bathroom, I have some Imodium AD and things like that. So finding something like that locally would be really difficult, and you wouldn't be able to find the name brands that we're mostly used to here that we can just get at our local pharmacy. And along with those travel meds, if you're climbing Kilimanjaro, we do recommend that you bring a prescription of Diamox. Diamox is a altitude medication that helps you basically acclimatize more quickly. It's a high altitude carbonic inhibitor, comes in a small white pill form like this, and it's usually a dosage of the most common is 250 milligrams per pill. And we recommend that you take 125 milligrams at breakfast and 125 milligrams at the end of the day before dinner. And the reason that we recommend that for Kilimanjaro is because you're climbing Kilimanjaro in a pretty rapid time. You're going to 19,341 feet on the fifth day. And we can do that in Tanzania, Africa, because we're actually only 200 miles closer away from the equator. And there's the most air pressure at the equator. So basically, we can climb a little bit more quickly on Kilimanjaro because we're closer to the equator and there's more air pressure at the equator, and we lack air pressure when we go high into the altitude of the mountains. So Diamox is something that's going to help us acclimatize a little more quickly. It does have a couple side effects that people can or maybe don't experience, but those would be they can make your fingertips or your lips feel a little tingly, which is a very common side effect, not a big deal, something people oftentimes feel, especially when they exert themselves. So they start to move a little bit and hike, and the blood's pumping, and they're feeling their fingers, their lips tingle. Very common. Carbonated beverages oftentimes would taste flat. We don't really drink too many carbonated beverages on Kilimanjaro, so that's not usually a big deal. And the other thing would be increased urination, and that's really the drug doing its process of helping you acclimatize. You're hydrating, you're excreting the waste, and your body's going through a cycle of acclimatization. Of course, there's a lot of more medical information that you could share about that, but that is the basics of Diamox. And this can help people, as I said, acclimatize a little more quickly. And as it helps them acclimatize a little more quickly, maybe they have less headaches. They might rest better because when their body's adjusting, they don't have what we call periodic breathing or Cheyne-Stokes breathing, where they gasp a little bit for air when they go to rest and they're laying down in their sleeping bag. And it can just help the process. That 125 milligrams AM/PM is a recommended prophylactic dose. It wouldn't be a dose that you'd take if you had a complication at altitude, and we'll get into that in another video. But the Malarone that I mentioned, super important when you come to Tanzania. Having protection against malaria. Not like there's a lot of mosquitoes or you're fighting off mosquitoes all the time, but one infected mosquito is one too many. Some over-the-counter travel meds, super important for people to always travel with. So in the event they feel discomfort, they can have something that will help them out. And then the Diamox for the high altitude climb on Kilimanjaro are going to be the main things that you need. We'll get into vaccines and some of the other things that we see at high altitude body complications in another video. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always here to help. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and contact us if you have any questions. It really helps us out.